Hi, beautiful soul. So this episode I filmed a number of years ago. It was for a world panel where I spoke on the correlation between trauma and addiction. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a trauma healer, but I'm not just a trauma healer. So how do I help people manifest or create abundance or deepen in relationship or heal health issues? So by healing the trauma, but the core trauma. The soul lesson lies within the core trauma. So life events, that same energetic based on the imprint from the trauma, will reoccur until we learn the soul lesson. So not only do I help people transmute the traumas, but I also allow them and guide them to see the soul lesson in it and to take an action associated with it so they can shift their field. The trauma healing will shift the field, and then to fully integrate the shifts, which will result in the manifestation or the abundance or deepening relationship or manifesting a relationship or healing a dis-ease. The key for it to not come back, for a similar situation to not reoccur, is trauma healing. And all addictions are taken away. And I'm not just talking about addictions that like substance addictions. I'm talking about like work or food or sugar or sex or porn or exercise or anything that we go to try and take away the pain temporarily, including substances, of course, which could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be cannabis, it could be plant medicine, it could be kava, it could be kratom, it could be things that mushrooms, society might seem, oh, that's not bad. Nothing's inherently bad nor good, but it's our relationship to the addiction that is the issue. And what I mean by this is it's holding you back from the things you want most deeply in life. So say you're addicted to lust and porn. That is drastically affecting your relationship, or if you desire one, it's affecting your ability to get in a healthy and deeply connected relationship because it's teaching you to objectify your partner. Not only that, but also if we talk about DFs, opening your energy field to energies that will drain you, will drain another person, that will unconsciously control you. If you need to learn how to clear these, data is your go-to. They're basically like entities, but very strong entities with specific types of energy. And they'll draw you to things that are not of your highest, that will keep you from your goals. They will drain your power, drain your focus, all the things. This is why 90% of millionaires have a monogamous relationship or partner that they're married to, because they understand the power of this energy if channeled correctly, the sexual energy. And they understand how much it can deplete you if it's scattered everywhere. So anyways, just want to hold transmission of that. But the following transmission that I'm about to play for you is about the correlation between addiction and trauma. So what most people don't understand, is addiction comes from trauma. But on a deeper soul level, and I literally don't even know anybody teaching on this or talking about it to this depth, on a deeper soul level, that numbing of the pain, doesn't get rid of it. It just amplifies it the next day. And then you have to use more numbing and amplifying and whatever your quote vice is, whether it's overworking or always doing something. Over socializing can even be an addiction. Exercise, a substance, sugar, chocolate, all of these things, they're not inherently bad. However, if you're using them to numb, then what you're actually doing is you're numbing the portal because the portal and the key codes are literally in the trauma. The soul lesson is in the trauma. You're covering up that portal to your transformation and to what you deeply desire the most. That's what you're doing. So I don't talk about this in what I'm about to play, but I talk about the correlation and how it controls your life and our life. And if we keep numbing, we are getting farther and farther and farther away from what our soul deeply desires and from our most fulfilling life, our most abundant life, our most deep, intimate, nourishing relationships. FYI, even your most deeply nourishing, pleasurable sexual experiences, yes, you are numbing those with addiction. And tenfold, 20-fold, 100-fold if you're doing it with something that is inducing and opening your field to distorted sexual energy. Anyways, more on that another time. But without further ado, let's go to this transmission. And if anybody needs help with addiction, with core trauma healing, meaning learning the soul lesson 2, not just the healing, we do both over here at Jai Jill Alana International. Here for your victory. Jai means victory. There's a whole story on how I chose that name. I didn't choose it. It was a divine download. My business was named something else. It was Healing Hands. And then we went to Ascension Business Coaching. When I went to incorporate that, it literally didn't go through, even though it was available. And then I was like, maybe it's not supposed to be ABC Coaching. It's supposed to be something else. And then I heard Jill Alana International. And I was like, abbreviation Jai, I wonder what that means. And I looked it up and it means victory in Sanskrit. So here we are. Anyways, if you need help with this is what I do with my private clients. I also do this at my retreats. And I have some sort of healing, energy healing or deep core trauma healing, shamanic breath work, clinical hypnosis, etc. I mix modalities because I need to target the mind, body, and soul, not just give you a lowdown of what's going on, but actually give you tools and then help you process the trauma and learn the soul lessons. So I use 13 modalities I'm trained in. I'm training in a 14 right now in a year-long program. So that is what we do. And then the manifestation is the byproduct. The abundance is the byproduct. It's the cherry on top. The relationship. I have several women that I worked with that are now in beautiful marriages due to this core healing when they were not in good relationships before. And I mean like abusive relationships. I mean getting cheated on. I mean just the whole array. Narcissistic relationships. And so when you do the core healing, the manifestation, whatever it is of your desire, is the byproduct. But we gotta go deep and we gotta go to the core. Otherwise, if you just heal the surface level trauma, or if you just work with the mind, you're missing the soul lesson and will come back, but come back bigger. Okay, love you. Let's go to the show.
Okay, so Jill, with all the mental and emotional health crisis that are going on right now, it seems that directly correlated are addictions. And I want to know, how would you define addiction and how would you define trauma and what is the correlation between the two?
Yeah, so I think there's a misconception about what addiction is. Like, for those of you in Vancouver, it's like, oh, East Hastings, there's so many addicted people there. But as a society in general, there is so much addiction that we don't even recognize as addiction. So my definition of it is any behavior that causes soothing in the short term and makes you feel good in the moment, but is harmful long term. So that could be drugs, that could be alcohol, that could be any sort of substance, that could also be overworking. Because when we're overworking, we're not present with our body. We don't have the time to process emotions, which I'll get to in a moment when we talk about what the correlation is and what trauma is. It could also be sugar, it could be food, it could be sex, it could be over exercising, like all of these things that, again, make us feel better in the moment, but are harmful in the long term. So none of these things are actually bad. It's the relationship to it. If it's like, oh, this thing happened, I don't want to feel this feeling, I'm going to go have a glass of wine, or I'm going to go for a run because I literally can't handle the emotion, that's an addiction. Trauma, again, I feel like there's some negative connotations around trauma. Like, we all have trauma. It's just stuck energy in the body from an emotional experience that in the moment we weren't able to process, usually because society says, oh, girls can't rage, or men or boys can't cry. Therefore, usually between the ages of 0 and 7, when most of the programming happens, but it can happen after, the stuck emotion is in the body, and it's in the body until it is viscerally released, which I will talk about in a moment. But you watch animals in the wild, or even pets or a bird, something happens, they get spooked, they shake it off, and then they go on. They have processed the stuck energy. Whereas us as humans, something will happen. Even I see this with clients with grief sometimes. Somebody will die, they won't grieve the loss. Therefore, the energy is still stuck in their body. And the correlation between the two is the addiction covers up the pain of the trauma. And how we release that is viscerally through the body, whether it's in breath work, meditation, yoga releases a lot. There's so many modalities, but the key is to release the stuck emotion. So it's like not why the addiction, it's why the pain, and how can I feel the pain in a safe environment, release it, and then you're free of it.
Fantastic. Wow. Yeah, that's really well said. Really, really, really well said. I didn't know how you were going to do it, but that was awesome. So Jill, then, and you and I have spoken about this in private, but why is it important for us to overcome our traumas?
Yeah, so many reasons. It's so important to release the trauma because the trauma is subconsciously and unconsciously creating our behavior and running our life. So any place you're stuck in your life, or you have a repeated pattern or an addiction, there's a trauma there, which is fine, because I mean, it's fine when you recognize it, because we can then release it. Again, as Al said, the first step is awareness. So if we're unaware of it, we can't do anything about it. But once we become aware of it, it's like, whoa, every time like I'll give you a funny example, but it's a real example for me. I almost failed computers in high school. I was like really good in all my other subjects, and I almost failed. And my parents got really angry. They're like, what is this? So I had a trauma, a samskara in my body, like running my life. And people would be like, oh, can you just do this like computer thing? And it'd be a simple task, but I literally couldn't sit down and like try and do it without having an anxiety attack. So I just avoided it. The one day I decided I was going to do it, I sat at my computer and I cried for an hour, and I just released it. And the next day I went back and I was like, oh, I'm actually like pretty decent at this. But it was controlling my life for like 2.5 years. I tried to build a website and I literally just couldn't do it because I wasn't willing to feel that. Another example is in relationships. So say you have abandonment issues, and as I did, this is another example from my life, and you haven't felt that, but you want a partnership. You will continue to draw partners who will abandon you or who will bring up that feeling until it's healed and released, which is a huge opportunity, because once it is, it's like that anxiety, that fear of, oh, what if I get abandoned? What are they doing? Goes away. And it's like, oh, okay, now I'm okay by myself and they're an asset to my life. And if it doesn't work, then we can have this conversation, a conscious conversation of this isn't working. But until the trauma is released, the emotion, which isn't always comfortable, and a lot of times it's a lot of crying or rage, but then you're free of it. And I should say most people want to get to their CD, which is their highest life, when they're in the most joy and the most peace and the most abundance. The problem is, a lot of people just want to get there, but we have to go in through the shadow. And that is where our traumas are up, release them, transmute them. And then we access our gifts. We all have God-given gifts. And then from there is the CD. There is no bypassing. Like there's no way to get to and unlock our gifts and unlock our highest self without going through the shadow, releasing them, transmuting them. So when you recognize, oh, I have trauma here, I have this feeling I don't want to feel, it's amazing, because once you go into it and transmute it, your life literally changes in the best ways possible.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know you and I've had some
If you loved learning about that and you want to go deeper, I'm going to link below a free event called The Keys to Liberation, where I go even deeper into addiction, what causes it, aka trauma, but deeper into trauma, what that actually is, and how to actually heal the root cause of addiction, so you're not swapping from one addiction to another when you give up a substance or a habit and then it just becomes another one. So if you're looking for the information on what you can do to actually heal the core and be free from the root cause of the addiction, thus all the addictions that were coming from it, then I highly recommend you listen to the Keys to Liberation event. It is free and I will link it below.